Hello, my name is Corinne Talham. This is an interview with Uppercrust Bakery for the Gainesville Business History Oral History Project run by the Inquire Capitalism program of the History Department at the University of Florida. For us and the public, the information you are providing is a gift and an incredible historical resource, and we really appreciate your time. This interview will be a part of the UF Oral History Collections and the UF Digital Collections, and it will also be posted on YouTube.
Okay.
So can you please introduce yourself? What's your full name, and then could you spell it?
Sure. Giles Benjamin Guzick. That's spelled Giles Benjamin Guzick. I go by Ben, my middle name, and I'm the owner of Uppercrust Bakery.
Great, thank you. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and maybe when you came to Gainesville?
Okay, cool. Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. I moved here with my family just after I graduated high school. So that was 2008. My parents moved here for to both work at the University of Florida. My mom still does, yeah, so I've called Gainesville home the last, what does that mean? Geez, 16 years, wow. Yep.
Cool. Did you go to university at UF?
I didn't. At the time that I was making my college decisions, my parents, I thought, were very happily situated in Rochester. Little did I know. So I went to very different had a very different college experience from a large university like the University of Florida. Originally went to a small liberal arts college in Minnesota called Carleton, and then transferred to another small liberal arts college where my brother attended called Vassar College.
Oh, cool. And what did you study?
English. Yeah. So nothing to do with food.
Yeah.
Which is not really an option in a smaller school, for better or for worse.
So how did you get into business?
Through food. Originally, my interest in food was in some ways at least divorced, maybe antithetical to any kind of business interest. It was just for the love of the making itself. I got into. I mean, I'd always loved to eat, but then between my sophomore and junior year, when I was transferring, my parents were both like I am workaholics, and then my brother had an internship, so I was really just at home. And when I didn't have anything else to do, with my mornings and often afternoons, I was like, well, I guess I gotta cook for myself, and that's just through that, the necessity of it is how I kind of fell in love with the craft.
Yeah. So I know that Uppercrust was started by Jacqueline Duffy. How did you become the owner?
Yeah, sure. So fast forwarding then to 2015, I just finished working as a line cook for a couple of years in Charleston, South Carolina, and moved back to Gainesville. Also concurrently with a weird kind of breakup situation, and so I was like, well. Gotta find a job, and so this has always been our family's local bakery. They live in the northwest of Gainesville, so I was just here to pick up the bread, and I was like, oh, they're hiring. Well, as it so happens, I'm looking for a job, so I applied, and that's how I first started working here. So I was here for actually I'm forgetting a little bit the timeline because I've been here for so long, but I think I was here for a year and a half or so before I went to graduate school for hospitality management, where I learned some more of the business side, I guess, of doing this, and then worked here for like a year after. Before transitioning to ownership.
Very cool. Do you know where the name Uppercrust came from?
I'm sure Jackie told me at one point, but I don't. I do know that she's always been fascinated by and really just loves food, and so she for her whole life, and it's really kind of she has a kind of magical presence for it, like where she's just seeking and searching like the best tastes. So insofar as that might be connected to Uppercrust, that would be my best guess.
Thank you. So what were some of the challenges you faced when you first transitioned into ownership?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was, you know, if I'm good at all at this now, I was much less good then, and if I had a do-over, I would do fewer changes at first. You know, I really was naive about a lot of things. The first, I'd say 6 months especially, but the aftermath of my I guess management style probably lasted for a solid year and a half before we resettled into a new normal. There's a lot of changes, things that were really important to do for I think our service quality and product consistency, and then just the health of the business. So like the first year, we were closed on Sundays for as long as I had been part of Uppercrust, and I was like, well, we should really be open on Sundays. I mean, we're paying rent on every day. You know, we're paying utilities on every day, and Sundays makes sense that people would be interested in getting some stuff for us, because Friday and Saturday are our other busiest days. And so that transition to being open Sundays was really tough. Similarly, we converted all of our recipes from volumetric measurements, so like cups and measures, to gram scaling, which of course is more precise, but when you have a team of like 12 bakers who are used to doing it a different way, and it's like literally all of them doing it a different way, of course there are going to be some folks who adopt, but some who don't, and then finally there was from a service side also in the first year, there was just a lot of kind of staid kind of European I guess style service, which was, I think, purposeful. But like, you know, a kind of maybe a general attitude of we'll serve you when we serve you, you know, and so that just required to change that required staffing, so that we could be more present for guests when they arrived, but also just kind of like completely retooling that kind of cultural aspect of how we did things, where I guess it was just reconceptualizing point of why we were there, you know, which, and maybe I'm not making as cogent a point as I wish I were, but for a server to feel like, oh, okay, my number one priority is like when guests arrive to greet them and try to make a connection, is a very different thing from them thinking, oh, I'm here to like sell our product and try to move as much as I can, you know, and so things kind of go kind of downstream from there, but what and I do think that those were good, important changes, but they didn't need all to happen at once, and then I was equally naive for thinking that everyone would think this is a great idea, or that all of these are great ideas, and of course there would be universal adoption. You know, the mere, you know, just the statement itself now just seems kind of ludicrous, and you know, so we, you know, we had some suffering as a result internally. Hopefully not too much on the guest end, but definitely internally.
Well, in the same vein, what's something you're the most proud of?
Cool. Wow. Okay. Yeah, a couple things. Number one, really proud of our espresso program. That is a new thing that we have since, you know, I guess I've owned the business. That was, I guess, year 3, I think 2019. So maybe year 2. It's an integral part of the experience I think we provide at both locations. In particular, actually, our satellite location, where in Hale, where we do have more table service and folks can hang out inside or outside and do more than our guests do here. And so to be able to just pair our baked goods with espresso drinks of equal quality that we care about the sourcing, care a lot about how we make. I just think it's a great experience that we provide there. And then the second, since I've gotten into baking through here, my pet passion has been particularly in bread, and so there are a few new recipes that we have in that department that I'm really proud of. The sourdough, which is now our most popular bread, was not part of the roster when I started. So that, and then really across the board on the breads, we've the other new one that we have that's really a substitute for a previous bread is the campan, which is like a French country sweet. If we could have a cleanup help on that, thank you. Sorry, Kiana. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. Yes, the campan. It's a really traditional recipe that's made entirely with a natural starter, and then a little wheat and a little white flour. There are a lot of nuances in its production that kind of make or break it being good, and so it just requires some extensive knowledge and intuition about what the bread needs to be, you know, good. And I think it is an improvement on the wheat bread that was here when. Improvements may be wrong. It's different. You know, the wheat bread that we had was denser and had seeds in it, and it was a really neat bread, but it was I guess less flexible for its applications than and less classic, I guess. for a French bakery. And then the other breads, the cereal I haven't touched because it's a great recipe. And then the wheat and the rosemary, or pardon me, the white and the rosemary, we've also retooled a little bit so that hopefully we keep the spirit of the original recipe, but in the flavor and its application in their applications. I guess just texturally, I think they're nicer, or more what I like to have when I try them. Or yeah, I guess that's enough. Espresso and bread, to answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when did you guys expand to Hale?
Yeah. So. It was March of 22 when we opened. We got the property just before COVID hit, so literally February 2020, and so we thought it might be quite a bit sooner, and then COVID happened, and so we didn't move on it for about a year and a half. For that reason, but to answer your question, March 22. So we've been open just a little over 2 years there.
And it's been successful?
Yeah, I mean, hospitality businesses, food and beverage businesses, most of them don't survive the year. So by that metric, yes, and I'm very proud that happened. I'm also very, very proud of the style of service we provide there, which is maybe more high touch, complete experience than one that we can provide at this location, which really does primarily function as a takeout bakery, which is like cool, but we're I got into food because it felt like my most kind of real and true expression of how I can show people how much I care about them, and so to be able to show that, to be able to spend more time with guests to show that is gives us the opportunity to make more of that magic, that kind of magic. So yeah, the bakery itself is much less busy than this one, which is kind of good and bad, right? It's similarly, the first year that we opened, it was really a challenge. The first 6 months in particular, we struggled with a few kind of what's our identity kind of thing, which you don't know until you don't really know until you get consistent guest feedback, like any business. After month one, it's like, oh, we think our guests are using us more for these things, but does that mean that they would like this plus this, or they don't care about this? And so we try to several things, and some successful, some less successful, and it's just an iterative process in that respect, like anything. Overall, absolutely. The point of expanding their kind of twofold, internal and external drives. Number one, we had and have a really talented, excellent team, and having another location affords us the opportunity to provide more folks opportunities to advance and manage and think about other things than they've been able to do with us, or maybe any previous position that they had. And so hopefully this helps them on their career, and then from kind of like external, like guest interested way. So we in 2019 or 2020 we started going to the Hale Farmers Market, and really felt like we struck gold there, both for the kind of environment it was, and then also how well folks seem to respond to what we're serving. And so we're like, oh well, if and when we ever think about opening another location, like Hale probably makes sense, because we tried a couple other farmers markets, much more uneven response to our products and I guess like service style, and so I guess you just kind of follow the market in that respect, but so being able to and then to kind of come full circle, it did make us think like, oh well, so here we are, we went to the Hale Farmers Market, and it's really busy, and it's like 20-25 minutes away from our location here, and that absolutely would preclude some folks from visiting us who would otherwise probably want to, and so the prospect of being able to serve guests who demonstrated an interest in our product, who probably had only been coming here, and I think that's bared itself out to be true. Demonstrated an interest in our product, but just like we're only coming here for special occasions, or at least going out of their way to visit us. We were able to meet them closer to where they were, and so that felt good. This is maybe sidebar but related. Interestingly, at least for me, the part of the reason we selected the location we did in Hale is because it's adjacent to a shopping plaza. It's anchored by Publix. We're anchored by the Fresh Market, but it's same kind of concept, where it's like you have a neighborhood and you have a neighborhood hub, and like that's where we want to be. And so we're not in the village for that reason, because it's not anchored by a consistent shopping, like kind of daily visit situation, and so what was, I guess, interesting / unfortunate, is that our location is adjacent to the plaza, as opposed to like in the plaza right next to the grocery store. And so in that respect, I think we did underestimate the psychological barrier, as well as like brute physical distance barrier of folks being able to include petite uppercrust, the Hale Uppercrust, in their kind of like daily shopping routine. Whereas folks just like here, they go to Fresh Market, they come here, they come to the fishmonger, they get their hair cut. It's all kind of a piece, and underestimating that was maybe the biggest miss of our expansion. And if I guess if we could have done it over again, and I guess I maybe have some regrets about this, is that we didn't wait for a lease like right next. So it really was kind of a true, as much as is possible, a true replica of the kind of working business model we have here. But on the flip side, it's really nice to know that folks there do go a little out of their way to visit us, because it's not right next to where they would otherwise go.
Yeah. I'm sure you get this question a lot, but you said COVID it postponed your expansion. Did it affect? I mean, how did it affect your?
Yeah,
business
sure.
in other ways?
So we were less affected than a lot of businesses. So we're truly very fortunate for that. And in some ways, the model that I was telling you about, like takeout bakery, through no clever pivoting on my end, just seemed to be like the perfect, like the most resilient kind of model that we could have had, given the pandemic. So we were very lucky to be classified as like an essential business and food store, because we make bread and then we have a grocery aspect, even though it's like boutique and small, and so we were significantly less busy than we are now because of course fewer folks out and about, because they, as is appropriate, but we, there wasn't a day where we didn't have, like, some guests here, and so in some ways it's fortunate that it's kind of mostly in the rear view. But if I remember correctly, we were about 60 to 70% of our normal volume, or normal, what does that mean? Current kind of like regular volume, whether it's like a regular Tuesday or a weekend day. And so and then in terms of our team, when we started, when it, like February 2020, I think we had between 27 and 29 team members, and what I was really proud of is that we didn't lay anyone off. It was just a kind of natural, and like some folks felt less comfortable, some felt like comfortable given our precautions to work or not work, and so we ended up being, like, our staff ended up being, I felt, an appropriate size given our adjusted kind of volume down, and then we're just so blessed. It's just to have that happen, and then on days when most things went well, they really were kind of stark, but also kind of life-giving reminders that, like, whoa, like what we're doing really does make our community like really happy, and gives us too some sense of normalcy and routine, and something to do that they can feel like safe about doing, and then on the flip side, for us to just be able to have a similar kind of routine, and be able to have a steady job, it was really we were very lucky. So yeah, it was I mean, it was hard, but we were very lucky.
Speaking of the community, do you find that most of your customers are return customers, people that come every week?
Yeah. We have. I mean, I could tell you that and emphatically without having data behind it, but we do. For better, for worse, that's the thing about this point of sale systems. 81% of our guests are return guests, and that the return guest figure is defined as like folks who have visited us within a month. So I think the number is actually probably much higher. And it's just that and I'd call someone a regular who visits us 4 or 5 times a year, but they wouldn't be captured by that in Square necessarily, by their Square is our point of sale, by those metrics. But yeah, absolutely, we are neighborhood bakeries through and through. We do see college students on weekends, especially at this location, or whether they're introducing their parents or just trying us for the first time with their friends. Those seem to be most of the kind of like novel guest experiences.
I have a question about your staff. Is it college students, mostly people that are looking to stay in the bakery business?
Yeah. So we're currently a team of 52, if I'm not mistaken, and I periodically I do look at our split of who our college students are and who are not. A lot of our service staff is comprised of college students, which makes sense. In fact, most of like the line level service team members who we have are students, and then the shift lead and manager roles tend to be folks who are more, available, first of all, for full-time work, and then considering kind of hospitality, food and beverage, maybe even bakeries and coffee specifically as something they might pursue for a long time or as an integral part of their career. So that's the service side. Kitchen side tends to be fewer students. If you're committing to working in a bakery kitchen, like part of the territory is getting up really, really early, and it's very physical work, lugging around like 50-pound bags of sugar and flour, and I'll just say early hours.
Yeah.
Most of our folks kind of know what they're signing up for there, and they do tend to be folks who are post-college. That said, currently, and I can probably count them, and just thanks to your patience, we have I think we have somewhere between 20 and 25 kitchen team members and 5 students who are full-time, or pardon me, part-time in the kitchen. So smaller percentage.
Yeah. The boutique grocery side of it, when did that become a part of the business?
So I can take no credit for that. It's been here as long as I've known the business, and it's it was a passion of Jackie's, like to source really great olive oils, balsamics, pasta, as well as chocolates and candies and so on. Things that anything really that we wouldn't make, but complement our products. there's a lot of good food out there, and so we've just tried to keep up that same kind of, like, I guess, philosophy of sourcing, and then the biggest, and it's not like a boutique grocery for sure, but our most popular retail items are Jellycats, which is like a stuffed animal brand, and then greeting cards, which do make sense for a bakery. Like, if you bring a cake, it's happy birthday or congratulations or something, and so we try to be ready for those. Hopefully things that complement our products, is the theme.
In terms of marketing, do you guys rely most on word of mouth or recognition of the brand, or what kind of?
Oh, yeah, good question. So, yeah, I mean, the fortunate thing about having a 43-year-old business is that there is, a lot of community recognition of it. So, that again, I can't take any credit for that. When I started here, it was Uppercrust was a 34-year-old business, still very well known, still a stalwart of the community. And so at that point, we were just on Facebook, and Jackie would do these really, I should maybe archive them, like these really just like, poetic kind of like disquisitions on like, here's this product that we have, and here's this wine tasting that we have. And they were really charming, and they were great. And so we were on Facebook with those kind of things. When I took over the business, like we started an Instagram following, which was, we were probably half a decade late to the game by that point, but it was I think it's been a helpful resource for it has been a helpful resource for informing guests about like either new products that we have or new things that we're doing, especially during COVID. Like, as we'd have like policy updates, those were like really important to tell guests about. So that doesn't necessarily answer your brand awareness question, maybe, but it's only helped. And then the last thing that was really like, to speak to how ingrained we were and hopefully are. Thank you, Lainey, in the community. We had this. We have this very return focused guest base, and so it seemed obvious to me to have like some sort of email listserv where folks who demonstrated by signing up here or on our website like an interest in like what's going on in Uppercrust, that they could get a personalized kind of email every now and then about like updates or again like holiday information or like new product information, what have you, and so to try to be able to recognize and respect like the return guest base and explain things to them that I like they seem to demonstrate intrinsically an interest in with our bakery. So so we have done that kind of marketing, but nothing too crazy. Yeah.
I've just one last question. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite thing at the bakery?
Oh yeah, cool. So I mean bread. For sure. I take one of the benefits we have for our team is we get a free daily bread, And so I usually take home either a white baguette or campagne batard, like the country wheat loaf for sandwiches or just eating. So those two I'd say are probably my real actual favorites. But then has like proofs in the pudding. But yeah, besides that, we usually have like 2 or 3 items that are seasonal or rotating, and they're across our different like kind of product lines. So croissants, tarts, and then usually one other pastry that rotates. And so we use like really great local produce for those things. And so being able to capture the peak of a season, and then like translate it into our kind of like bakery language, that always excites me, So right now we have just started running it yesterday actually. We have a whipped feta and tomato chausson, which is just like a croissant shape. The grape tomatoes we're getting are great, and then there's just like a balsamic glaze in the whipped feta just to like kind of complement its flavor and sweetness with some acidity and salt. But yeah, so we always have something rotating in that vein that typically highlights local produce. So those are exciting.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for listening to me yabber on.